Here comes Susie Sausage Head.
So, let me tell y'all about the time Susie Sausagehead was packing all of her hot girl summer gear into a small carry on suitcase that had wheels. She was going on a trip with her friend group and was only planning on being gone for 3 days and maybe 2 nights, not counting travel time. The suitcase would suffice for everything that she was bringing because she didn't need to bring much. Susie was double checking her inventory and making sure she wasn't missing any toiletries or socks. Her destination was going to be a warm one. Vegas, in fact, and she could not wait. Satisfied with her packing decisions, she gathered her suitcase, handbag, sunglasses, and car keys, then headed out. Susie Sausagehead drove through traffic for a minute, following her GPS, before approaching the on ramp for the interstate. But instead of heading for the airport like she usually would, she turned toward the city. This trip would not be a fly out mission because a friend group had decided to take a bus instead. This decision was made for several reasons. The first being the amount of people that would be traveling. There would be about 70 people going on this trip, both male and female, ranging from the ages of 21 to about 81. The second reason was economic. With this many people traveling, it was cheaper to charter a bus than it would be to pay for plane tickets. The third reason was logistical. It would be a nightmare to keep up with that many people traveling at different times, using different airlines, and booking at different hotels. The fourth and final reason was related to the trip itself. This was supposed to be a bonding exercise for everyone involved. And what better way to achieve bonding than with a road trip? Susie Sausagehead arrived at the bus terminal and was pleased to find that the friend group organization had chartered a double-decker bus. She'd been on a few before, but this one was fancy. The bus seemed newer, with sleek lines, updated windows, comfortable seats, 2 restrooms, and a galley for coffee and snacks. Susie gave her bag to the driver's attendant to pack away below the bus, then turned to greet some of her friends. There were about 30 people milling around outside the bus socializing. These folks could be considered the early crowd because they were usually the first ones, well, anywhere. They were a part of the friend group core organizational committee. And though this committee or organization was unofficial and ceremonial at best, the rest of the group counted on this committee to plan and organize all activities because, well, they were the best at it. It truly was a relief to know that they had all things under control, and it was reassuring to see their faces before every excursion. They weren't planning on leaving for another 45 minutes or so, but Susie liked to be early to avoid delays in traffic, getting the best parking spots, and finding the best seat, whether it was on a plane or a bus. After a while, everyone arrived and were finding their seats on the bus. The bus driver and bus driver's attendant were packing the last of the luggage and were readying the coach for travel. Susie Sausagehead had found a window seat on the second level of the bus, right around the middle point. The seats were arranged in a 2x2 arrangement and were wide with reclining options and footrests. The aisle down the middle of the bus was spacious enough for those travelers that had walkers to use. There were serving trays and beverage holders. The windows tilted open to allow fresh air to flow in. The restrooms were bigger than the ones that you would find on airplanes, and the galley was fully stocked. The bus departed from the terminal on time with everyone on board and headed toward Vegas. Everyone was in a great mood and ready for the hours-long road trip. The committee let everyone know the itinerary regarding rest stops, refueling, changing drivers, and viewing scenic outlooks and/or landmarks. The road trip would be long enough to get rest as well, and it was for this reason that Susie brought along her noise-canceling headphones. The charter also provided blankets for use while traveling. How nice. Everyone was enjoying themselves thus far and were glad to be on the bus instead of those stuffy planes. Susie Sausage Head loved how easy it was to use the stairways to move around the coach both up and downstairs, and it was great to be able to mingle freely with everyone, play board games, card games, or make a snack with coffee. Everything was going so well, and they were approaching their first rest stop on the itinerary. It was a national landmark that they would stop for about 30 minutes to take pictures and stretch their legs at. There were also restaurants if anyone was interested. When they were finished, they loaded back onto the coach, and one of the committee members did a head count. They found that 4 people were still missing and unaccounted for. After a quick phone call, it was discovered that they were in a souvenir shop and had lost track of time. Once they were back on board the coach, the road trip resumed. Now, Susie saw this first near miss as a bad omen, but she kept her suspicious notions to herself. She was not the only suspicious passenger on this bus, and she knew that saying it out loud would earn her the ire of those other individuals that were probably sharing in her current notions. Because after all, if you don't say it out loud, it won't be true. Right? Susie Sausagehead decided to put in her earbuds and take a nap instead. She'd made it up in her mind that she really didn't need to get off the bus until they arrived. She could stand up, open her window for air, make coffee, and use the restroom. There was the issue of a meal, however, so before she put on her sleeping mask and tucked in for a few hours, she gave the friend sitting next to her on the bus some money and a meal request for the next excursion. With her blanket and pillow, Susie was off to a peaceful and comfortable rest. Her sleep, however, would be interrupted by her need to use the restroom a few hours later. When Susie removed her eye mask and earbuds, she found that the bus was still moving, but the seat beside her was empty. She could see out of the coach window that it was now nighttime and they were in the middle of nowhere and farmland. Susie got up from her seat to use the restroom, not yet alarmed by the empty seat beside her. The friend, after all, could be somewhere else on the bus, socializing. As Susie moved toward the restroom, she observed some of the friends on the bus engaging in various activities that were not happening when she closed her eyes. She witnessed gambling with card games and dice, some partaking in libations, and a faint whiff of flour somewhere. Susie also observed that some of the friends were vomiting in the bags and complaining loudly about cuisine from a diner that had been rancid in nature. All of this was set against a bombastic soundtrack of up-tempo music. The galley was situated just outside of the upstairs restroom, and Susie Sausagehead could see that it had been raided for napkins by the vomiting road trippers, as well as soft drinks and snacks by the gamblers and libationeers. Susie also noticed that the smell of flour was more pungent here, and she followed her nose to the no vacancy sign lit up on the bathroom door. She knocked on the door, and 2 voices answered her. 1 male, 1 female, and both of them younger in age. Susie loved a good mystery and could probably guess without much deductive reasoning who occupied the stool, but she herself had to go too badly right now and just didn't have the time to care. She descended the rear stairs to use a lower level restroom and found this one to be occupied as well, sporting the same "no vacancy" sign as the one upstairs. Again, Susie knocked on the door to inquire who was the occupant and was met with a loud, juicy, watery explosion of defecation from the other side. This was accompanied with a loud moaning and groaning about bad diner decisions. At this point, Susie was beside herself and turned to find the committee. What exactly had transpired while she was sleeping, and when did it all go so wrong? Susie approached the committee, whom themselves were in the middle of a heated discussion, and instead of voicing her grievances, she began to listen. still very aware that she needed to use the restroom and guessing that the one upstairs would be free soon enough. She walked up in time to hear something about turning around and canceling the trip. Not only was there excessive use of libations, flour, and gambling, there had also been the issue of food poisoning, not only on board the coach, but for those left behind. That's right. Some folks were left behind at the last excursion due to being ill and in the restrooms vomiting. These included the committee member responsible for keeping a head count, as well as the friend sitting next to Susie. Apparently, the food had been gotten from the stop before the last one, including what Susie herself was supposed to eat. And by the time they reached the next stop, everyone that had eaten the food had fallen ill. Susie's food had been thrown away once the culprit had been identified. Susie thought to herself, "Welp, after I use the restroom, I'm going back to sleep." The end.